Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. 3 months into my job at Channel 8 News, and I still hadn't broken a real story. Just fluff pieces about county fairs and local parades. That changed when the police scanner crackled to life at 6:47 a.m. All units respond to Oakwood Heights apartments, multiple disturbance calls, possible hostage situation. Xavier X. Sutton. My cameraman was already grabbing his gear before I could say anything. His instincts had earned him every award in broadcast journalism. When X moved, you followed. "Better move fast, Grayson," he said, slinging his camera bag over his shoulder. Channel 5 probably heard the same call. The Oakwood Heights building loomed ahead of us in the pre-dawn light, 10 stories of tired brick and rusty fire escapes. Police cruisers surrounded the entrance, their lights painting the scene in alternating red and blue. Something about their positioning seemed odd. They weren't just blocking the entrance, they were creating a perimeter. "Too many units for a domestic," X muttered, powering up his camera. "Something's not right." A young officer stopped us at the police line. His hand kept drifting to his holster, not standard procedure for crowd control. "Building's off limits," he said, voice tight. "Media needs to stay behind the yellow tape." I pulled out my press badge. "Grayson Pierce, Channel 8. Can you confirm reports of a hostage situation?" "No comment, stay behind the line." That's when I noticed more vehicles arriving. Not police cruisers, but unmarked vans. Men in tactical gear began unloading equipment, medical cases, hazmat suits. "X," I whispered. "You getting this?" He nodded. "Camera already rolling. Service entrance, west side of the building. Saw it during that tenants' rights story last month." The decision I made next would change everything. "Think you can get us in?" X lowered his camera, fixing me with a hard stare. "Kid, breaking police lines isn't like sneaking into a city council meeting. This could cost us more than our press passes." "Look at their faces," I pressed. "The cops are scared. This isn't just some domestic dispute. There's a real story here." He studied the scene for a long moment. More unmarked vans were arriving. A police helicopter thundered overhead. "Your call," he said finally. "But if we do this, we do it smart. Follow my lead." We circled the block, staying in the shadow of neighboring buildings. The service entrance was unguarded, all attention focused on the front. X made quick work of the ancient lock, a skill I decided not to ask about. The service corridor was dark, thick with the stench of garbage and mildew. Our footsteps carried through concrete despite our attempts at stealth. Somewhere above, we heard shouting, then silence. "4th floor," X whispered. "That's where the scanner said the initial call came from." The stairwell door groaned as we eased it open. No elevators. Too risky. 4 flights of stairs in tense silence, hearts pounding with each distant sound. A woman's scream cut through the quiet, then abruptly stopped. Apartment 412 stood open, door hanging off its hinges. The living room beyond was chaos. Furniture overturned, walls smeared with dark stains. A broken lamp crackled weakly, casting strange shadows. "Jesus," X breathed, camera rolling. "What happened here?" Something dripped in the kitchen, each drop hitting tile with a sharp, wet sound. I moved closer, drawn despite my rising dread. The liquid was dark, too dark to be water. A crash from somewhere down the hall made us both jump. Footsteps heavy and dragging approached the apartment. "Hide," X hissed, pulling me behind an overturned couch. The footsteps stopped in the doorway. Through a gap in the furniture, I could see boots, police-issue tactical gear, smeared with something dark. They moved into the apartment with an odd, stumbling gait. A radio crackled. "Officer Torres, report position." No response from the figure. Just more stumbling steps, closer to our hiding spot. "Officer Torres, acknowledge." The boots stopped directly in front of the couch. Above us, ragged breathing filled the silence. Then slowly, the figure began to bend down. X grabbed my arm, grip painfully tight. I could feel his pulse racing through his fingers. The tactical officer's face appeared in the gap. Skin gray, eyes vacant, mouth working soundlessly. A new sound cut through the moment. Heavy boots in the hallway, multiple sets. Voices approaching. Team 2. Sweep this floor. Full containment protocols in effect. Shoot on sight, this infection cannot spread beyond the building. The figure snapped upright, head tilting toward the sound. Then it moved with terrible speed toward the hallway. Gunshots shattered the silence. Something heavy hit the floor. X and I stayed frozen behind the couch, hardly daring to breathe. The brutal truth was sinking in. We weren't documenting a story anymore. We were trapped inside it. The tactical team moved past our hiding spot, boots crunching over broken glass. Through the gap in the furniture, I could see their hazmat suits. Full containment gear. Not standard police equipment. Clear, one of them called. Subject is down, collecting samples now. Negative, another voice responded. No sample collection. CDC teams are en route. Maintain perimeter only. They dragged away the body of Officer Torres. His radio lay forgotten near the couch, still occasionally crackling with static. X reached out slowly and pulled it closer. Full lockdown authorized, a voice came through. All exits sealed. No one enters or leaves until CDC confirms containment. My stomach dropped. X, we need to get out of here. Wait. He held up his hand, listening to more radio chatter. They're setting up a command post in the lobby. 2 teams covering all stairwells. We're not walking out of here. A scream pierced the air, closer this time from the apartment next door. Not fear or surprise, pain. The tactical team's radios burst to life. Multiple incidents reported on 3 and 6. Teams respond. Shoot to kill, repeat, shoot to kill. They rushed out, leaving us alone in the blood-stained apartment. X immediately moved to the window, camera ready. Dear God, he breathed. Grayson, you need to see this. More vehicles had arrived, CDC transport trucks, mobile command centers, even military Humvees. They were establishing a wide perimeter, pushing back crowds and media. In the growing morning light, I could see snipers taking positions on neighboring rooftops. What the hell is going on? I whispered. The answer came from behind us, a wet cough that made us both freeze. We turned slowly. An elderly woman stood in the apartment doorway, leaning heavily against the frame. Mrs. Alvarez from 415. I recognized her from previous stories about tenant rights. But something was wrong. Her skin had a grayish tint, and dark fluid stained her nightgown. Mrs. Alvarez? I stepped forward. Are you hurt? We can help. Don't! X grabbed my arm. His camera was up recording, but his hands shook slightly. Look at her eyes. They were wrong, clouded over, unfocused. She took a stumbling step forward, her neck twisting at angles no living person could achieve. That's when I noticed the bite mark on her neck. Raw and pulsing. Gunshots on the floor above made her head snap up. She lunged forward with predatory intensity, charging straight at us. X shoved me aside as she crashed into him, sending them both into the overturned coffee table. I grabbed a broken lamp, swinging it without thinking. It connected with her head with a sickening crack. She fell, but kept moving, trying to bite X's leg. He kicked free just as heavy footsteps approached in the hall. In here! The tactical team had returned. 2 rifles pointed at Mrs. Alvarez. Wait! I stepped forward. She's just sick, she needs… The gunshots were deafening in the small space. Mrs. Alvarez stopped moving. You idiots picked a bad morning for a story, one of the tactical officers said, grabbing my arm. Command post, now! They marched us downstairs, past more signs of violence, broken doors, blood smears, shell casings littering the floor. The lobby had been transformed into a military-style command center. Monitors showed security camera feeds, most of them static or darkness. A harried-looking police captain turned from a radio console. Who are these people? Press. Found them on 4. For heaven's sake. The captain rubbed his temples. Put them in the security office. We'll deal with them after. A new voice cut through the radio chatter. Multiple breaches on 7. They're breaking through the walls. We need backup now." The tactical teams rushed for the stairs. The captain pointed at 2 officers. "Watch them. No one leaves this building. CDC says we've got potential exposure." They locked us in the small security office. Through the window, we could see the command center screens. More areas of the building were going dark. "X," I said quietly, "when Mrs. Alvarez attacked us. That wasn't natural. She moved like Officer Torres," he finished. "Yeah, and now we're locked in here with them." The radio we'd taken from upstairs crackled again. "Be advised. Infection spreads through fluid contact. Bites confirmed as primary vector. Full quarantine protocols now in effect." Screams and gunfire filled the floors above us. On the monitors, we watched as more residents emerged from their apartments, each moving with relentless determination. X checked his camera footage. "People need to see this. They need to know." The power cut out, plunging us into darkness. Emergency lights buzzed to life, casting everything in a sickly red glow. Through the walls, we could hear scattered footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across floors and down stairwells. In the darkness, each sound became a threat. The security office window gave us a clear view of the command center. In the red emergency lighting, the tactical teams regrouped, checking weapons and ammunition. Their movements were precise but rushed, professionals trying not to show fear. X kept his camera rolling, documenting everything. They're not just containing us, they're looking for someone. A new group entered the lobby, CDC personnel in full biohazard suits. Unlike the tactical teams, they moved with deliberate calm, setting up mobile testing equipment. Their leader consulted with the police captain, pointing at building schematics spread across a makeshift command table. Through the thin walls of the security office, fragments of their conversation reached us. "Maintenance worker Mitchell. Need the body contained. Time critical." "The janitor," I whispered. "Remember that story last month about the CDC facility? One of their maintenance staff lived in this building." X nodded. "4th floor, apartment 417. That's when the pieces clicked. The infected officer's tactical gear wasn't standard issue. It was CDC response team equipment. They'd tried to extract someone from this building hours ago. It had gone wrong. I stood up, approaching our guards. "We need to speak with the captain. We know this building, we've done stories here before." The guards exchanged looks. One keyed his radio, relaying my request. To my surprise, the captain himself came to the security office. "You're the news crew?" He studied us through tired eyes. "Way I see it, you've got 2 choices. Stay locked in here or make yourselves useful." "We'll help," I said quickly. "Whatever you need." "CDC wants to check Mitchell's apartment. You know the layout, you've been there before. You guide our team, stay out of the way. Maybe I forget about the trespassing charges." It wasn't really a choice. 2 tactical officers unlocked the door, handing us protective masks. Not full containment gear, but better than nothing. "Stay behind us," one of them ordered. "Any sign of movement, you freeze. Understand?" We nodded. X kept his camera running as we moved toward the stairwell. The lobby team had established a solid perimeter, but the floors above remained largely unexplored. The climb to the 4th floor was tense. Blood trails marked the steps. Shell casings littered the landings, evidence of previous encounters. "Hold!" The lead officer raised his fist. Voices drifted down from above, confused, angry shouts. Not the mindless sounds we'd heard from the infected. "More survivors," I whispered. "Unlikely," the officer replied. "Building's been locked down for hours. Anyone still here is either infected or—" He didn't finish the thought. We reached the 4th floor landing. The hallway beyond showed signs of violence. Broken doors, smashed furniture, dark stains on walls. Apartment 417's door hung open. Inside, the scene told a story of desperate struggle. Papers scattered everywhere. Furniture overturned. A broken syringe near the bathroom. "CDC team, move in," our escort radioed. "We've secured the apartment." The scientists entered, methodically checking every room. They paid special attention to a stack of paperwork. Employee badges, facility access logs, medical documents. "Subject's not here," one reported. "But there's blood. Fresh. He can't be far." A crash from the stairwell made everyone turn. Heavy footsteps approached, too many to count. "Multiple contacts," a voice called over the radio. "They're coming up from 3, need backup now." The tactical team moved to defensive positions. One of them shoved us into the apartment's kitchen. "Don't move," he ordered. "Whatever you hear, whatever happens, you stay put." Gunfire erupted in the hallway. The sounds of combat mixed with inhuman screams. Through the kitchen door, we could see muzzle flashes painting the walls. Then the power went out. In the sudden darkness, only emergency lights and weapons fire illuminated the horror unfolding outside. Our camera's light caught glimpses of the infected. Their gray skin, vacant eyes, blood-stained clothes. They weren't an army, maybe 5 or 6. But in the confined space of the hallway, against opponents trying not to hit their own people, numbers meant less than savagery. "Fall back," someone shouted. "Regroup at the stairs." The tactical team retreated in stages, covering each other's withdrawal. CDC personnel rushed past our position, clutching samples and documents. We were trapped in the kitchen, watching shadows dance across walls as the battle moved away. The screams grew distant, then stopped. Only our breathing broke the silence. That and slow footsteps approaching the apartment. A figure appeared in the doorway, another of the infected, but this one wore a maintenance uniform. Even in death, Mitchell had found his way home. Mitchell's body blocked our only exit. In the faint emergency lighting, dark fluid dripped from his mouth, pooling on the linoleum. His movements were rigid as he stepped into the kitchen. X raised his camera, more from habit than intention. The small mounted light illuminated every grotesque detail. The gray skin, the vacant stare, the CDC badge still clipped to his blood-stained uniform. "Grayson," X whispered, keeping the camera steady. "If we don't make it, at least we got the story," Mitchell charged. X shoved me aside, swinging his heavy camera like a club. The impact staggered Mitchell but didn't stop him. He grabbed X's arm, pulling him close. I heard the tearing of flesh, saw X's face contort in pain as Mitchell's teeth sank into his shoulder. I grabbed a knife from the dish rack and drove it into Mitchell's back. He released X, turning toward me with savage focus. Behind him, X stumbled but managed to grab a cast-iron pan from the stove. He swung it with all his strength, the impact dropping Mitchell to his knees. "Run!" X gasped, but his voice was different, strained, as if he was fighting something inside him. We burst into the hallway. A security guard was helping an elderly couple barricade their door. His name tag read, "Wilson." "In here," he waved us toward another apartment. "Quick." Inside, X collapsed against the wall. The bite wound was ugly, deep punctures surrounded by skin that was already turning gray. Sweat beaded on his forehead as fever took hold. "How long?" I asked Wilson. "Varies. Saw one turn in 5 minutes. Another lasted almost an hour." He studied X with grim experience, but they all turn eventually. There has to be something. The CDC teams, they must have. Kid, if they had a cure, would they be sealing us in here? X's camera lay forgotten on the floor, still recording. I picked it up, checking the footage. Everything was there. The initial chaos, Mitchell's attack, the truth about what was happening. "Listen." X's voice was weak but urgent. "The memory card, there's a satellite uplink in my bag. If you can get high enough." He convulsed, teeth clenching against obvious pain. Wilson moved to the window. "Got more company. SWAT team setting up outside." He paused, noticing something. "Hey, news choppers too. 3 of them." That's when I understood what X meant. "The roof," I said. "We could broadcast everything." "You're insane," Wilson started. But X cut him off. "He's right. People need to know, need to see." Another spasm hit him. When it passed, his eyes were different, clouded around the edges. But he was still fighting. "Help me up." "X, you can't. I've got maybe 20 minutes." He grabbed his bag, hands shaking as he checked the equipment. "One last story, kid. Make it count." Wilson cursed under his breath. "Fine, but we need to move. More infected between us and the roof, and your friend isn't the only one turning." The journey upward was a nightmare. X deteriorated with each floor but refused to stop. We had to rest frequently, hiding in empty apartments, supply closets, anywhere we could catch our breath. Through windows, we saw the city's growing chaos. More sirens, smoke rising from scattered buildings, people running in the streets. "It's already out there," Wilson said quietly. Mitchell wasn't the only one. On the 7th floor, we found more survivors. A young mother with 2 children, an off-duty paramedic trying to help an injured man. They'd barricaded the stairwell door, but we could hear infected trying to break through from the other side. "There's another stairwell," Wilson told them, "through the maintenance corridor. Get to the 4th floor, apartment 412. Group of people there have food, water. Go now." X watched them leave, his expression haunted. "How many people still alive in here?" "Not enough." Wilson checked his watch. "SWAT won't wait much longer, once they come in." We reached the roof access. X was barely standing, leaning heavily against the wall as I picked the lock. Behind us, Wilson kept watch with his bat. "Hurry," he said. "Got movement in the stairwell." The door opened to reveal the Philadelphia skyline at dusk. News helicopters circled nearby buildings, their spotlights cutting through growing darkness. Below, SWAT teams moved into position. But what caught our attention was the city itself. Smoke rose from at least a dozen locations. Emergency vehicles raced down crowded streets, sirens mixing into a constant wail. People fled on foot, carrying whatever they could grab. The infection wasn't contained, it was spreading. "Oh God," X breathed, his voice barely human now. He fumbled with the satellite uplink, hands shaking violently. "Grayson, you have to." "I've got it." I took the equipment, setting up quickly like he'd shown me 100 times before. "Just hold on." Wilson helped me position the camera, aiming it to catch both me and the chaos behind. The uplink connected, its small screen showing we were live. "It's working," I said, turning to X. "We're ready to." But X wasn't listening anymore. His body had gone rigid, eyes completely clouded over. Whatever had made him my friend, my mentor, was gone. "Grayson," Wilson's voice was firm. "Camera's rolling. Make it count." I faced the lens as X began to rise, his movements now as wrong as Mitchell's had been. Behind me, the city burned. Below, SWAT teams prepared their assault. And somewhere in the building, more infected climbed toward us. One chance to tell the truth. One chance to warn everyone. I took a deep breath and began. "This is Grayson Pierce, reporting live from Philadelphia. What you're about to see." The camera's red light blinked steadily, a reminder that somewhere out there, people were watching. Behind me, the city's skyline burned against the darkening sky. And 6 feet away, the thing that had once been X stumbled to its feet. "This is Grayson Pierce reporting live from Philadelphia." My voice shook, but I forced myself to continue. "What you're about to see is happening right now at the Oakwood Heights apartments. I need you to understand. This isn't a story anymore. This is a warning." Wilson positioned himself between me and X, baseball bat ready. "Keep going," he said quietly. "Make it count." I held up X's camera, showing the footage we'd captured. 3 hours ago, my cameraman Xavier Sutton and I entered this building following reports of a disturbance. What we found was something else, something worse. The footage played on the satellite uplink's small screen. Mitchell's attack. The CDC teams, the infected residents. Through the lens, the horror was almost clinical, removed. But I could still hear X's screams when Mitchell bit him. The infection spreads through bites. Once infected, victims develop fever, then... I turned the camera toward X. His movements were jerky, predatory. Gray skin pulled tight across his features. Nothing remained of the man who'd taught me everything about journalism. This was my friend. 20 minutes ago, he was still fighting the infection, helping me reach this roof to broadcast the truth. Now he's gone, just like the others. Below, SWAT teams moved into position around the building. Their radios crackled. Orders to sweep each floor, eliminate any infected. But now their operation had witnesses. Thousands of them, watching live. The CDC knew, I continued. They tried to contain it when Mitchell, one of their maintenance workers, became infected, but it was already too late, and now the infection is spreading across Philadelphia. A quick pan across the city proved my point. Smoke rose from multiple locations. Sirens wailed continuously. In the streets below, people fled in growing numbers. X lunged suddenly. Wilson swung his bat, catching him in the shoulder. The impact would have crippled a living person. X barely stumbled. "Stay back," Wilson shouted as more figures emerged from the roof access. Other infected drawn by our voices. "Keep broadcasting. They're going to kill everyone in this building," I said into the camera. "Infected or not, they think they can still contain this, but look at the city. Look at what's already happening. People need to know. They need to be ready." The roof access door burst open. 3 more infected rushed out. Residents I recognized from earlier. Behind them, heavy boots on stairs. SWAT was coming. Wilson fought like a man possessed, keeping the infected away from me. But he was tiring. X got past him, moving toward me with terrible purpose. "This might be my last broadcast," I said, backing toward the edge. "But people need to see, need to understand what's—" The SWAT team reached the roof. Their weapons snapped up, laser sights dancing across infected and survivors alike. "Hold fire!" The command came not from the roof, but from their radios. "Target is broadcasting live. Repeat, subject is live streaming. Switch to containment and extraction." Everything happened at once. Flashbangs detonated, disorienting the infected. SWAT officers rushed forward, creating a perimeter. Behind them, CDC teams in protective gear moved to secure the area. "Get him out of here," someone ordered. "Before—" X charged through the perimeter. I saw him coming but couldn't move fast enough. His hands locked around my throat as we both went down. The camera clattered across the roof, still transmitting. I fought against his grip, staring into eyes that had once belonged to my friend. His mouth opened, teeth aimed for my throat. The gunshot was deafening at close range. X's grip loosened. Above me, Wilson stood with a SWAT officer's sidearm, his expression grim. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. He was already gone. They evacuated us by helicopter, me, Wilson, and 6 other survivors they'd found in the building. Through the chopper's windows, we watched Philadelphia descend into chaos. The infection moved through the city like wildfire, proving what we'd feared. Mitchell hadn't been the only source. The virus was already loose. The CDC facility was a fortress of concrete and steel, surrounded by military vehicles. Armed guards escorted us inside, past rooms full of scientists studying data, arguing over containment protocols. They'd lost control and they knew it. "Your broadcast saved lives," Wilson said as we watched more helicopters arrive. "They can't cover it up now, can't pretend it's just a local problem." "What about the others?" I asked. "The people still in the city?" Before he could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. One of the scientists rushed past, shouting into a phone. "Reports from New York, Boston, Baltimore. It's everywhere. The containment protocols failed. We need to switch to survival strategies immediately." I thought about X's last coherent words. People need to know. Well, now they did. But at what cost? Hours later, I stood at a reinforced window, watching military convoys roll into the city. The soldiers wore full protective gear, weapons ready. Smoke still rose from dozens of locations. The CDC's monitors showed similar scenes playing out in cities across the East Coast. They'd wanted their story contained. Instead, I'd given them something else. The truth, broadcast live to millions. Now everyone knew what was coming. Everyone could prepare. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Pierce, we need to check you again for signs of infection." I nodded, following her to the medical bay. They'd been monitoring all of us since arrival, waiting for symptoms that hadn't appeared. Wilson sat nearby, getting another bandage changed. "You know what the hardest part is?" he said quietly. "All those people we left behind, the ones we couldn't save." Through another window, I could see news helicopters circling the burning city. Somewhere down there, in the growing darkness, people were fighting to survive. Running, hiding, maybe finding safety. All because they'd seen our broadcast, seen the truth. X's camera sat on a table nearby, still containing the footage of our last story together. His final work documenting the beginning of something terrible. I picked it up, checking the battery level, still half full. "What are you doing?" Wilson asked. "Getting ready," I replied. "This isn't over. People still need to know what's happening, need to see the truth." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Like X said, one last story." "No," I corrected him, turning the camera on. "This is just the beginning." In the distance, Philadelphia burned. Military helicopters swooped low over infected-filled streets. Emergency broadcasts repeated on every channel. The world was changing, faster than anyone could have predicted. But thanks to X's sacrifice, thanks to one desperate broadcast from a rooftop, people weren't facing it blind. They had seen what was coming, had time to prepare, to fight, to survive. I raised the camera, framing a shot of the chaos below. The red light blinked on, recording. One more story to tell. The truth couldn't be contained anymore. Neither could the infection. All we could do now was document what came next, bear witness to whatever this new world would become. Somewhere in the city, a siren wailed its last note and fell silent. Night was falling on Philadelphia, and with it, the last remnants of the world we'd known. The doctor returned with test results. "You're clear," she said. "No signs of infection, but we need to move you to a secure facility, somewhere safer." "Is anywhere safe now?" I asked, still filming through the window. She had no answer. None of us did. I thought about X, about his last moments of clarity, about Wilson's courage on that roof, about all the people who died trying to contain a truth that couldn't be contained. The camera's memory was nearly full. Soon I'd need to start a new recording, tell a new chapter of this story. But first, I had to finish this one. "This is Grayson Pierce," I spoke into the lens, reporting from the CDC facility outside Philadelphia. "The time is 9:47 p.m., and this is how our world ended. Not with a bang, but with a bite." Behind me, the monitors showed more cities going dark, more infection zones appearing, more people running from something they didn't understand. But they would understand. I would make sure of that. X had taught me that the most important stories were the ones people didn't want told. His last lesson had cost him everything. The least I could do was make it count. I kept recording as night fell completely, as the burning city reflected off thick clouds, as military vehicles rolled endlessly toward a war they couldn't win. This was the story now, not just Philadelphia, but everywhere. But not just tonight, but for however long it took. The truth was loose, just like the infection, and neither could be stopped anymore.